Hi there, this is Kevin Patton with a brief audio introduction to episode number 42 of the A&P Professor podcast, also known as TAPP Radio, an audio laboratory and workshop for teachers of human anatomy and physiology. The upcoming full episode, that is episode 42, is a bonus episode. Longtime listeners know what that means. It means it's a lot longer than the usual episode, which averages around a half hour. Yep, this one's going to be quite a bit longer than a half hour, and it's titled Kevin's Unofficial Guide to the HAPS Annual Conference. And that name may ring a bell because last year around this time I think it was my first bonus episode with exactly the same title. But this one is going to be the 2019 edition. Yes, it's been updated and improved. There's more content, but fewer calories. And there's all kinds of surprises. It's not just me talking about it. There's going to be some other voices and even some singing and dancing. All kinds of surprises, but you're just going to have to tune in a few days when that episode becomes available. The free distribution of this podcast is sponsored by the Master of Science in Human Anatomy and Physiology instruction, the HAPPY degree. Check out this online graduate program at nycc.edu/happy, that's HAPI, or click the link in the show notes or episode page. Hey, there will be a table at the HAPS Annual Conference where you can talk to the director of the HAPPY program, Dr. Bill Germano, as well as to faculty in the program such as Dr. Frank Bell, or me. I'm on the faculty too. It's time once again for the word dissection segment of this preview episode. And this time it's going to be a little bit different. Ordinarily what I do is take a couple of terms that are going to be coming up in the full episode that are long, perhaps convoluted scientific terms that may not be familiar to us in typical A&P teaching, or maybe they are familiar to us, but it just gives us some practice in breaking down word parts as we do with our students. Well, the upcoming episode is all about the HAPS Annual Conference, and so I'm not going to be using any new scientific terms or probably no scientific terms at all in that episode. So what do I do for word dissections? Well, there are two words that I want to break down and talk a little bit about their meaning because I think it'll get us in the mood for going to Portland, Oregon, where the annual conference is in 2019, and having our conference there. And the first word is, yes, you guessed it, conference. Now, this is interesting because it's using word parts that are part of the terminology that we're already teaching our students in A&P. So in conference, the first word part is con, which we know means with or together. Then the second part, FER, which shows up in a lot of the terms we use in A&P. FER or fer means to carry or to bear or to bring. And then the ENCE suffix at the end, it's what's often called a noun suffix. That means it's making whatever word that we're building, makes it into a noun, it converts it into a noun. So that's usually applied to an action, a state, or a quality. So if we put that all together, conference, it literally means a bringing together. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing in Portland, right? When we go to the HAPS conference, we're going to be bringing ourselves together. We're going to be bringing our ideas together. We're going to be sharing resources. We're going to be sharing ourselves and networking. So conference, a bringing together, very apropos. Maybe next time I'll break down the word apropos. But the next term that I'm actually going to break down in this preview episode is the word Portland. Well, it's not just a word, it's a name, right? Portland is the name of the city in Oregon where we're going to be conferring for the HAPS Annual Conference. And that is actually made up of word parts. Port means a port for ships, a harbor area. And then land means land. So these are geographic terms that have been combined. So a portland is an area of land around or near or at a port. In the way that Portland got its name is not just because it is, in fact, literally a port land, according to the definition of the term. In the early days of European settlers coming in and developing what is now Portland, there were a succession of claim owners of the area looking to develop that area into a city. And at one point, it was 2 claim owners at that time, and they were deciding what kind of name they were going to have, and they flipped a coin for the rights to name this new city that they were envisioning. And the developer who won the rights was from Portland, Maine, and so he decided to call this new area in Oregon Portland, after Portland, Maine. Well, Portland, Maine, in turn, was named after another area, and that is the Isle of Portland. And that's an island in England. It's actually sort of connected to the southern coast of England by a thin strand of beach. And it's called either Portland or the Isle of Portland. And where it got its name is lost to history, but it's basically just because it is, in fact, technically a port land. So it was just kind of an organic thing that arose in the language of the local people based on the fact that it was the land where there was a port. This podcast is sponsored by HAPS, the Human Anatomy and Physiology Society, promoting excellence in the teaching of human anatomy and physiology for over 30 years. Go visit HAPS at theapprofessor.org/HAPS. That's HAPS. Be sure to say thanks to HAPS for helping to provide this podcast by mentioning it to the HAPS leadership. Let's say while you're at the annual conference if you're coming. I have a book recommendation from the A&P Professor Book Club. It's called Make It Stick: The Science of Successful Learning by Peter C. Brown, Henry L. Rediger III, and Mark A. McDaniel. And this is a book that I have recommended before, especially in the early episodes of this podcast, and I've included it as a link in the show notes and episode pages for many of the episodes throughout this year and a half or so that I've been doing the podcast. And the reason why I link to it so often is it's really done a lot to inform me about my own teaching and my own progress in learning how to become a better teacher of human anatomy and physiology. And I'll give you an example of how it's helped me. For a long time in my teaching, I felt that one of my primary roles as the A&P professor was to make A&P easier for students to learn. I figured that the easier it is to learn, the better they'll learn. Well, it turns out that research shows us that that's not exactly true. Now, on one hand, if things are too hard, then learning is going to be difficult or maybe even impossible. So too hard isn't too good, but too easy also isn't good. It's the old Goldilocks phenomenon. We don't want the learning to be easy. We don't want the learning to be hard. We want the learning to be just right. There is a desirable level of difficulty. And I'm not saying that it's easy to find that sweet spot, but at least now I'm looking for the sweet spot. I'm not always heading directly toward the easy end of things. And there are a lot of other things in this book that a lot of us, I think, take as, sort of the dogma of how things are taught, either based on what we've seen or read or what we've experienced ourselves as students. And this is helping us wade through all that and looking at what does the evidence tell us? Which processes really do work, which teaching processes are not very effective, and which processes might actually be doing harm to learning. Another thing I like about this book, it's always fun in a book when somebody pops up in it. And one of our own HAPS members